Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. I'm your host today, Harry, and unfortunately we've not got very happy things to talk about after a disastrous result yesterday away to Dundee United, but I've got a star-studded cast with me today in Liam, Greig and Euan. Luckily for Ryan, he is away out for dinner tonight, so have good food and won't have to reminisce over yesterday. But Liam, we'll come to you first. How are you getting on, mate?
I'm doing all right. Turns out, as I was telling you boys when we started, that fatherhood is actually a bit more difficult than I maybe first thought the first few weeks, hence my absence. But it's still not as difficult as watching Hibs yesterday.
And Greg, we'll come to you next. How are you getting on, mate?
Yeah, I'm okay. Let's just move on and commence with the therapy.
All right. Actually, just before that, we did get a bit of comic relief from Euan just before we started the podcast. So, Euan, can you please share to the world why you are missing the Edinburgh Derby at the weekend? All right, Greg, can you please confirm why you're missing the Derby at the weekend?
So Euan's missing the Derby because he's going to watch Willy Wonka. He's away to see Charlie and the Chocolate Factory on Saturday during the Hibs game.
No, that's the worst thing. The worst of it is because
it's on Saturday. It means that you cannot go to the game. So, yeah,
I know.
That's a shocker.
I've known it's been coming for I think I told you about this months ago. I didn't tell you why I couldn't go. I was begging for it to be on the Sunday, and then I got moved to 12:30 on the Saturday. But you know what? As the week progresses, I think I might be more than happy for where I'll be on Saturday versus where you will be.
Just to say, I'm a big
Imagine being happy at missing a derby because you wait to watch Willy Wonka and
I'm good, thanks, so Harry.
That's a shocker.
Yeah, no, I was going to say how are you excited for it and how are you doing?
I'm good. I had to work on the bank holiday, unfortunately, but still, that was the highlight of my Easter weekend.
Right. And just before we get into the atrocity that was yesterday, I just want to say I actually do quite enjoy going to the theatre, but the fact that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory just makes it so much funnier. It's just a funny concept. So as we've been doing usual,
hate it, absolutely hate it.
Oh mate, you'll have a good time, I'm sure. But as we've
been doing, dress up, make sure you dress up as for the characters.
My fake pan and my green wig.
Perfect.
Oh God. But yeah, I think we're all scarred for life thinking of Euan being in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Euan and the Chocolate Factory would be a great spin-off. Okay, but guys, let's get into Hibs mode, unfortunately, and let's get cracked straight into things. So our first question we've been sent in from Scott Craig, and he asked, how do we get Kukarevich and Nisbet in without playing three at the back? Given 4-4-2 isn't really a thing these days, do we play Nisbet as a 10? Liam, we'll come to you first. You hate formations, but how do you foresee us fitting Nisbet and Kukarevich in the same team?
Nisbet's played in the 10. I quite liked him playing there. I'd be up for that, playing Nisbet in the 10 and buying Kukarevich. I think Kukarevich has to play. I think Nisbet's our best finisher, so you'd maybe make an argument for Nisbet being in the 9 position, but I think as an all-round centre forward, I think Kukarevich is superior, and I think his work rate is significantly greater than that of Kevin Nisbet, and therefore I think he has to play. And I think the only logical thing for me is to try and get Nisbet into the 10, seeing as we don't actually have a number 10 at the club at the moment, because we've been playing Josh Campbell there, who's not really a 10 unless he's a 10 without possession. So Kukarevich and Nisbet, 9 and 10. There you go.
Nice. Me personally, I remember when Nisbet went down injured, I was saying how excited I was to see him and Kukarevich play together. And then after Nisbet was on the road to recovery, Kukarevich got injured and we never got to see it. Euan, when you seen the team sheet yesterday after Hoppy's poor performance last week, were you surprised that Kukarevich wasn't drafted in?
Yes. Team was shite. I made it, just to answer the initial question, play 4-4-2. Play our best players in their best positions. It's fucking simple. Play Kukarevich, play Nisbet, play Euan off the left. It's not fucking hard. Just play 4-4-2. The worst it was, Dundee United lined up 4-4-2, so you wouldn't even have been at risk of being overrun in the middle of the park. It's just, I don't understand the lack of minutes Kukarevich has had since he was fit again. He has hardly featured. Came off the bench at Livy for all of 10 minutes, scored. And yesterday's probably the most minutes he's had. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
And Greg, to yourself, do you think Kukarevich is has to start at the weekend? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, there's no question. When a striker misses for 2 yards out and spends 90% of the game in his arse, you're struggling. Kukrevich, great finish from him yesterday. Finished it properly. So yeah, I think that you need to start him up front. There's absolutely no question now. It's beyond me why he's not had more minutes, to be honest. But
Yeah, I fully agree. I wasn't particularly happy yesterday. And as I said on Twitter, if Kukrevich doesn't start on Saturday, I think that Lee Johnson has blood on his hands. But I'm going to stick to the player questions.
What if he does, Harry? What if he doesn't start?
Fucking hell.
Like,
I like being dramatic.
Blood on his
guys.
hands.
It's the death of Hibernian Football Club. He's not really, but you know what I mean. But we'll stick to
we
player
died in
questions
2012,
because.
lad. Come on, keep up with that.
Paul Mackay, sorry. Should we play Ethan Laidlaw or Josh O'Connor instead of
Sorry, are we
persisting?
going to let that slide?
What did you say?
Paul Mackay.
I know I said McKay instead of Mackay. Apologies, Paul. Paul can call us out on that. That's not your job. But should we play
at
Ethan
least he's
Laidlaw
not going to Willy Wonka the way.
or Josh O'Connor instead of persisting with McCurdy? So essentially, in our starting lineup, or in our priority lineup for the kind of front three position, would you guys put Laidlaw or Josh O'Connor above McCurdy at this point?
I'd put Gary O'Connor ahead McCurdy.
Ahead of McCurdy, yeah, but I wouldn't play them. But they don't start, but I'd have them over McCurdy. But I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, they're not better than Euan, Nisbet, or Kukrevich. So, like, just get your, say 2 minutes ago, play your best players. Adam McCurdy isn't one of them. And I don't think Josh O'Connor and Ethan Laidlaw right now are either. You know?
They deserve a place on the bench ahead of the likes of Jair Tavares, though.
Yes.
Like I know, we've got McCurdy playing on the right wing, who's I was going to say he's not a right winger, but I think that'd be kind. We've got Jair Tavares, who makes the odd 5-minute cameo when the manager's basically run out of other subs to use. I would much rather we had that spot filled by Oscar McIntyre, Ethan Laidlaw, Josh O'Connor, just anyone that's not Jair Tavares, to be honest. It's nothing against Tavares, but he's been here for nearly a full season now, and 5-minute fleeting appearances seem to be all that he's capable of. And when he comes on, he doesn't look ready.
Has he started a game? Did he start at St Johnstone?
Against St Johnstone.
He started at Livy as well.
Oh, aye, he did that.
Oh, yeah. So
he was hooked in both those, though, wasn't he? He was hooked.
Yeah,
hooked in both games.
It started like the first 2 away games of the season, and that's it.
Aye.
Also, Harry McCurdy, if you believe the rumours about certain tattoos, may actually be a right winger.
No further comment. All right, before we get embroiled in controversy, let's move on. Liam, you're not going to like this question, but Jack Kell asked, what percentage of the Edinburgh population do you think would be better at right back than Chris Cadden?
Classic Hibs fan base. Look for an individual to scapegoat and look for an individual to blame. It's Chris Cadden this week. Step forward. Look, if you're going to single out individual performances and you pick out Chris Cadden for our performances over the last 4 weeks, so a poor player, you need to follow a different sport. Jack Kell.
Let's be honest. The answer is 0.
Nah, seriously.
No, the answer is probably 0. Like, if you want to take the question at face value, I thought when it came in it was like an Easter Road or whatever. Like, better than Chris Cadden at right back in Edinburgh. Maybe 1 or 2. Like, maybe a Hearts player's better than him at right back. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, he's still.
Nathaniel Atkins said, "Nah, I don't think so."
He's still the best right. He's still
Michael Smith. No, I don't think so.
I don't.
Best right back in Edinburgh.
I've been on record saying I don't think he's great at right back, but he's still the best right back at the club, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't think his best position's right back. However, he puts a shift and he does a job, which is a lot more than what other players do in that team. I think he gets a lot of shit, but I don't understand why. He can be frustrating defensively, absolutely, but I wouldn't say he's a defender. Ultimately,
he probably gets criticised because of the amount of usage he gets as well. I think me and Liam have spoken about that in the past as well. Like, I think his crossing's not great, but it's definitely, if you want to talk about sample size, Chris Cadden has a lot more sample sizes of crosses than anyone else on the pitch. You know what I mean? Like, so he probably we probably should have scored from one of them at the weekend, and when he drilled it across, and we did score from one of them the previous week, albeit the conversion rate, if you like, is probably pretty low.
But you also need to remember that his crosses are only as good as the people that get on the end of them. You know, and I mean, I thought against Motherwell when he was playing further up the park, he was looking more of a threat in the final third. He was beating players, he was putting balls in the box, but there was nobody there to finish him. So you probably go, oh, that's a shite ball for him, but really, then you look at the movement.
Can I say on Cadden as well, Harry, before we go back to you, just it's the classic thing. He's been here 2.5 years, and it's the familiarity problem that all Hibs players suffer from. They've been here for a while and they've been in underperforming teams, therefore they must be the problem. It's like people make that association bias between they've been here for a while, we've been shite, so they must be shite. Hanlon, Stevenson, and to probably a lesser extent, Newell suffer from that as well because they're some of the longer serving players. Cadden is absolutely fine for the level we're at. Absolutely fine. He's probably not a right back, but he is absolutely fine. He would be, I think, better in this team playing on the right wing with maybe Miller in behind him, because I don't think defensively he's great. I don't think that's the best part of his game. But in terms of his engine and his ability to get to the byline, he gets into this Hibs team 9 times out of 10 for me. So
right, he's your best.
Sorry, agenda.
Sorry to jump in, just because I've been trying to make a point for the last few. One thing that I found confusing, it was mainly in the first half, but he did get caught out. Like I don't know if it was him or it was a miscommunication, but there was obviously ahead of the goal, and then about 5 minutes after, right back was empty. Like I know for the goal, I don't think it was his fault necessarily, because he tried to get on the end of a ball, a crossfield ball. I think it was from CJ, and then they ended up getting cleared. They counter attack. BH had literally half a pitch to run to result in a goal, and then 5 minutes later, the exact same thing happened. I don't know if when Cadden bombs forward, Campbell's supposed to fill in, because that did happen on one occasion. But one thing that people don't understand with Cadden is he's supposed to have help on that wing, and he didn't have any. Like I'm not saying he's absolved of blame for that, but if he's bombed up the wing to chase down a challenge, there should be someone filling in. Be it shouldn't have 50-60 yards of clean space to run straight into, which resulted in the first goal and essentially killed the game for us.
I think positionally as a right back, that's where I actually think one-on-one defending he's not too bad. I just think he's sort of not where he should be a lot of the time in terms of defensive sense. Like the worst comparison in the world, but like Trent Alexander-Arnold, Liverpool fans will say he's the best creative player on the pitch, but every other supporter will say he's absolutely shocking at the back. Like Cadden gets caught out a lot. Like he wasn't good yesterday. I don't want to cloud that. He wasn't good, but he wasn't the worst on the parquet either.
Yeah. You'd have some fucking competition for the worst player on the park yesterday, though. And this is the thing, like, folk want to single out individuals about the Motherwell and Dundee United game. Tell me one player across those 2 games whose performance was up to scratch.
I would say Kukurevic yesterday, and that would be it.
No, I said across the 2 games.
Sorry. Yeah, fair. But okay, and then he had a fun question. Let's try and bring up the vibes a bit. What is your favourite album of all time? And Jack's favourite album is Doggy Style by Snoop. Personally, I love Forest Hill Drive by J. Cole. It's just one of those ones that I listen to on quite a regular basis. Gives me
very good shout, Harry. It's a very good shout.
My music sense, listening generally just goes by songs, not so much albums. But one that came to mind for me was Graduation, Kanye West.
Ooh, solid.
Ooh. On the hip hop theme, Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar.
Yes, sir. Get involved.
Some of the OG Drake stuff as well. It's just next level.
Take Care, is that?
I'll probably get some hate for that.
That's the one I would say is Take Care. Undoubtedly.
Nothing was the same for me if we're going off albums. But Take Care's probably got more bangers on it, but nothing was the same as the album.
One that's better for me, but the fact I can't remember the name of the album. I like Hollywood's Bleed, Post Malone's second album, I think it was.
I enjoy a bit of Post Malone.
We're not turning into full-blown hip hop.
Felt like listening to Post Malone after that Hibs game yesterday. Like, done some Post Malone in the fucking shower with a razor blade.
Yeah, fall apart non-stop.
Maybe an electrical appliance or something as well. You know?
Just chuck a toaster in there. That'll do the job.
Toaster and microwave. Fucking why not?
More effective than the right hand side, anyway.
And just to throw out there,
Ooh.
I don't understand Drake slander. I think Drake has. I don't think he really misses. I think Drake's got a lot of top quality music, and I don't understand slander towards him.
The only
He's like
men
a
that
meme
didn't
on
like
Twitter.
Drake are jealous. They're just jealous.
That's it.
That's all it is.
Just don't let him anywhere near your sport and team.
Aye.
Someone tell Drake to put 10 million on Hearts this weekend, please. All right, but moving on and back to Hibs. Relevant to our last question, Dan Taylor has asked, why has Lewis Miller been dropped for the last 2 games? I've questioned his ability throughout the season, but thought he was excellent against Celtic. I like Cadden, although his performance tend to trend with that of the team. He's been poor of late. Is Lee Johnson destroying Miller's confidence? So quite a lot to digest, but essentially Lewis Miller, does he deserve a chance after quite a good performance against Celtic, or is Cadden still just going to be on the team sheet ahead of him?
Well, if you're basing it off other players' performances, then he absolutely deserves a chance. Jimmy Jago gets a game every week, and he's comfortably the worst player in the park every week. So I would say that based on his performance, and I mean, Doyle Hayes got a start against Motherwell based off his performance at Parkhead, and he was shocking in the first half at Motherwell. And he's lucky that he was the only one that taken off at half time, to be honest. So I think that if you want to give players a game based on performance, then absolutely,
I think
he needs to be consistent with it.
For me, the surprise that Miller's not is the fact that we're trying to shoehorn people into the winger positions just now.
Aye.
It's quite a simple solution as far as I can see, just playing Lewis Miller with Cadden in front of him. Like, I do think that Celtic Park away, in terms of what you'd expect from your fullback, is entirely different from what we should be expecting against Motherwell or Dundee United, in the sense that you would offensively you'd be wanting a lot more from them in the final third, but we don't have a right winger fit, so just play Chris Cadden on the right and play Miller right back. Like, it really is quite simple. I'll go back to what I opened the podcast with: play your players in their positions and play your best players, and you might win games of football. That's what Lee Johnson done when we went on our run, because he didn't have any other choices, because we pretty much had 11, 13 players fit. Since he's got options again, he's been tinkering with it and making some weird calls.
Wait, just sorry guys, I need to jump in there. Greg, sorry.
I'm just going to go right now. See if he's brave enough to
hell.
play him at Parkhead, then he's brave enough to play him. And that's just a fact. If he's okay with playing him there, then he can play him every week. Sorry, hi.
That's okay. The moment is gone. Liam, any final thoughts on that?
I said last week I was all for Cadden right wing, Miller right back. Should have happened weeks ago, and it's not happened yet. So maybe Lee, the second guesser Johnson, will get his Thumbola selection sorted this weekend and figure out that's what he does instead of playing that broken PlayStation controller Harry McCurdy on the right wing.
And then the final of the player questions that we've got, Sean Steele asked, what is CJ's best position in your opinion? I would have had him at right back, as Cadden really struggled with Behich. Personally, when me and Liam done our Up the Slope episode just after the transfer window, me and Liam discussed, I don't know if it was on the pod or after the pod, but I just don't personally see CJ as a centre back. I think the fundamentals of who he is as a player just kind of lean himself into positions where he's on the ball more often, and he can kind of use his athleticism to kind of either get up and down the park or get up and down the wing. And I was really surprised to see him there. Personally, I like him at right back. I like him at. I think the role that Jekyll's playing, I think that CJ would be really good. I think he's got a really strong sense of awareness on the football pitch, and I don't understand why we're not taking advantage of that at centre back, especially in the Scottish game. You're typically going to be matched up against a physical player that you're going to have to try and beat in duels non-stop. And I just don't think that that's CJ's game. I think we've got physical players that can kind of take on that role. And I think CJ, as soon as I saw that team lineup yesterday, I thought, what a waste. But that's my mini rant on CJ Egan-Riley. Euan, I'm not come to you first yet. What do you think of CJ? Best position?
And perfectly fine at right back, as we've seen at St Mirren. But to just go back to the last question, play Egan-Riley at right back and put Cadden at right wing. But centre mid for me. I think he's got the athleticism to play in there. I think he's good enough on the ball, capable of driving forward. Due to his athleticism, I'm not going to say he's the best player on the ball of that, but he's better than others.
And Greg, yourself?
Absolutely holding mid or centre mid. There's no a question. Even at right back, I'm not 100% sure about him.
And Liam ties off with that.
I think centre mid. I'm not versed on playing right back like Euan, but I think centre mid because he can pick the ball up. He's good enough to drive 10, 15 yards, but and get you up the pitch a wee bit as well. His first touch is generally better, and he can swivel on a football, which is always handy with your centre midfielders.
I just think, right, Hibs aren't that good that we're going to pass teams to death. You know, like we sort of done it under Stubbs in the Championship when we were that much better than that. But even there was games where it failed. But in this, against Dundee United, Motherwell's, Hearts, anyone really, players that are just willing to travel 15 yards and get you from even just one side of halfway to the other one quickly, that's where you'll win games. That's where you're going to score your goals. Well, the transitions is probably the proper word for it. Like, but that's where you score your goals in this league. That's where you get the better teams. That's why St Mirren are doing so well, because they've got athletes in the middle of the park. Bacchus, O'Hara. You know, like they run and they run and they run and they run. Whereas for me, Diego can't do that. Egan Riley can. It's like, and that's why you even seen it back in the day. Dylan McGeoch got overran in midfield sometimes because he didn't have the athleticism. Like Bartley was more athletic for me than what Dylan McGeoch was, which a lot of the time that was Bartley's strength in the bigger game. He could get across to make the right tackles. Jago against Dundee United, he got booked because he couldn't get over quick enough. And he had to lunge in. Like just Egan Riley for me, centre midfield, he's got all you need to be a good centre midfielder in this league is athleticism and an ounce of ability.
And in fairness to what you got, Jago, if you're a gambler, that is an absolute stick on for a booking every week. Like, hey, surely, how's he not suspended yet? I swear he's been booked in nearly every game he's played for Hibs.
Unfortunately, he's not suspended.
They not increase the threshold.
To 5, so I think he's on 4 at the moment.
That's wild considering they joined
7 games or something. 8 games.
I thought it goes up to fucking 10 or something.
Nah, I'm sure it's 5.
5 and then 10, you get a double game ban at 10.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, he can't do anything. He actually can't, and I've noticed that the Jimmy Jago fan club has stopped, which is of no real surprise because he's not good enough. He never will be good enough. He lacks any form of ability and can't do fundamentals correctly. So.
I just don't think he's anywhere near athletic enough. And to try and go back to the question, that's everything Egan Riley is: energetic, athletic, like Jeng. So I think that's all you need to be a good centre midfielder in Scotland. Jeng.
Jimmy Jago fan club at Hibs has got potentially an even shorter life than the Scott Bain fan club at Hibs.
Scott Bain still has a feather in his cap that if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have seen Scott Allen again.
True.
Yeah. That was so weird.
Jimmy Jago's not had that much impact on the team, though.
Goodness. Okay, before we, but see this next section, I think it's a big question. It's going to come up.
Sorry, so just to clarify, Scott Bain's done more good things for Hibs than Jimmy Jago.
I would absolutely say so. Yeah.
Believe it or not, guys, as a podcast in general, I don't think we're the biggest fan of Jimmy Jago's work. As I've said, I think there is a time and a place for a player like Jimmy Jago, but when you're chasing games, it's definitely
it's just
not
like the fucking T's and C's at the end of that.
When it goes really, really quick.
I'm just trying to glance over it before Greg kills me. But yeah, next section here is going to be on pretty much Lee Johnson and the problems at the club. We've got a few questions in about it, so we're just going to try and tackle it. But C. Jones, 1875, asked, are we even in a position to be able to bring in another manager, or should we stick with LJ and hope with a director of football things can drastically change? Surely changing managers, again, doesn't provide enough consistency for players, etc. But how long do we let this go on for? So that's kind of a 3-part question. Greg, we'll come to you first. Do you reckon Hibs are in a position to be able to bring in another manager? And a double part to that, should we stick with Lee Johnson?
I think we're in a position to bring another manager in, and I don't think we should stick with him. The money that we lose basically for finishing bottom 6 is because we will. It's bad enough You know, he's shown. I think we were all pretty on board actually when we went through the run. We could see what he was trying to do, and now it's back to usual where players look clueless, he looks clueless, and it's just an absolute clusterfuck at the moment, to be honest. I think if a manager's performing that poorly, you find the finance to get rid of him.
And we'll come to you, Euan. I know you're not positive towards Johnson, but you think it sacking him at the moment would be the wrong choice.
Well, I have to say, I said that before we started recording, but the more I've thought about his inability to put the right players in the right positions, no, I don't think now's the right time to sack him. Greg's talking about missing out on top six. I think, regardless, we are in the top six right now. I don't think Motherwell have the ability to overtake us. I'm pretty sure they've got Celtic before the split, which pretty much mathematically rules them out. Oh no, they might be wrong there, but yeah, I think we'll scrape into the top six. I still think we'll, like, not with any style. You know, I think we'll maybe get a point from the next two games, and that we'll scrape in with Livy not winning, but they have winnable games. But I think if you don't finish top six, then you move on off them. Like Greg says, regardless of the finances, you don't just keep hemorrhaging money into something that's not working. You know, you think you've got to cut your ties, and if we finish bottom six, that's when to do it. I don't see what sacking them now would change. Ultimately, David Gray comes back in charge till the end of the season. Like what? Because you're not going to hire a new manager till director of football's in place. So I don't really see the purpose.
This is where we've got a bit of, just on the director of football point, rather than touch on the manager thing, because we'll move on for that. But this is the issue with the director of football point. I mean, it was 3-4 months ago, Hibs communicated they were doing that, and it's still not concluded. I'm not sure how we're supposed to blind faith in the Hibs getting the appointment of the director of football right when they've got the appointment of recent managers wrong. I feel like the director of football's been held up as this thing since it happened that it's going to like save the club and turn things around. And I need a lot of convincing.
I agree, but I think when you put the plan in place to have someone there, that what you would think, regardless of who that person is, that person, I'd imagine, will be coming in with a remit of taking over a lot of control of the football operation. So I would expect that a director of football would have a huge influence on
possibly, yeah,
hirings. So if I know that I'm looking for someone in a senior position, that's my first priority to get them in for them to assess. You could argue it might be better to have them come in on a blank canvas, as you like, with no manager, permanent manager. But it might be better for them to have a period of sort of assessment of Johnson as well. But I agree that we can't be.
Well, I hope that assessment's undergoing and that assessment's taking place right now, because we've had. Well, it was appointed in May. I mean, I know the football didn't really start till late June, early July, but we've had 10 months to make an assessment on them, and my mind's been made up for a while. So I don't really know what other assessment needs to be done. We give them a full season. We can languish in the bottom six again and just rinse and repeat again for next season. To be honest, I know people have said things to the contrary, but I'm sorry to be really negative, but I just don't really see where season ticket sales are going to come from next season with the current people in charge of the club, still being in charge of the club.
See,
you could maybe argue that the football didn't even start till last month.
just to be a little bit devil's advocate to that, though, if we win on Saturday, you're in top six, you're closing a gap on fourth place. Like, I know, like that, like
the gap's not the Hearts, though. The gap's between us and third. Third's the ambition at the beginning of the season. I would argue we're no closer to finishing third place than we were last season.
Genuinely, though, it's the ambition.
Fourth is acceptable. But third really is the ambition.
We mocked Harry for predicting a third place finish.
Based on the recruitment that we did, and based on our start in League Cup, and I think that was entirely justified. Look, I predicted we'd finish seventh. But doesn't mean I'm happy with finishing seventh.
No, of course.
Your prediction versus what you actually want are two different things. And I think, see, just while we're on this point, I think, I think all of us individually at various points have been rubbish and have been slaughtered for talking about league positions and the importance of finishing high at the league. But if you want to talk to extend this conversation further, to talk about investment in the squad, if you want to talk about our performances in the cups, what bringing through the youngsters, what part of his objectives, and there'll be several objectives that he'll have in his contract, what part of his objectives is he meeting at the moment as manager? There's not a single metric he's passing
zero.
on.
But this is a thing that maybe like I do agree. I'm just saying, right now, if you were to remove him from his position right now, you would be ultimately stopping him from potentially achieving probably what is the number one target. That would be that sort of top 4 position. Because regardless of form, it's still there. You know, it is still there. It is still achievable. Do any of us think we will? Probably not. But but is it the right thing to say? I think the decision gets made if he does or doesn't finish top 6. If he finishes top 6, he gets the season, and then they'll assess then. If the next 2 games go the wrong way, and we're bottom 6, he's gone. The same way Sean Maloney was gone last year. But I don't know if it's right to make that decision now, when in 2 weeks' time we could be sitting 4th place if we win these next 2 games. And
we could also be sitting 4th place because we've got rid of him.
Can we though? Because who's coming in? David Gray. And we've seen that David Gray, for all his attributes as a player, I never seen anything in any of his interim periods that he would do any better.
You got James Scott to score a hat-trick.
I think David Gray needs to, I mean, I said this already to use, but I think David Gray needs to leave Hibs.
Yeah. I agree. If
go away and be a number 1 on his own, if that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, if that's what he wants to do. Like I'm not sure the benefit of sacking him right now is there, personally. Like, whilst I'm not his biggest fan, I just don't see the benefit of it right now.
You've seen Eddie May's record in caretaker charge.
Hey, just to say, as a Hibs fan, my objectives to see Hibs, like I've got 3 core objectives, and that is league, cup, big games. League, like as Euan touched on there, league's the only one that's a bit murky. It does have the potential that we could turn up form, we could win the next 2 games and potentially be sitting within 2 points of 3rd. We could end up winning the next 7 games and end up running clear in front. It's not going to happen, but you never know. So I'll put a question mark at that. Cup, he's been the worst cup manager we've had in the 21st century. Nobody's came to Hibs and had a worse start to cups than he has. Have they?
He's right though, Euan. Factually, he's right.
He got beat.
He got knocked out. He got knocked out of the League Cup at the group stage.
I'm just comparing it to maybe Butcher, who never had the opportunity to get us knocked out of both cups because we were on a duty one.
And then big games, which I would consider to be Hearts, Aberdeen, Rangers, Celtic. Fair play beat Aberdeen 6-0, but Aberdeen had been beaten 1-0 by Darvel. Or did they get beat 1-0 by Darvel after we pumped them?
No, this point really pisses me off. We go on about beating Aberdeen 6-0. They're now ahead of us in the table.
I don't really think anyone goes on about
it. But then my next point to that is that the other big games are Hearts, who we failed to beat this season and be embarrassed by twice, and Rangers and Celtic. And I think it's something mental, like a combined 22-1 scoreline or something. We've got a few more goals than that, but it's just crazy.
That's not mental. Like it's no good, but it's no. Celtic and Rangers are that far ahead of everyone else in the league. It's not good, but we got a point off of Rangers this season.
9 men of Rangers.
Stop! Like, we done it. Like, that's what happened. Like, that's what the context of. We can't take the piss out. No, we can't say, "Oh, media." When things are going well, or the media, we can only beat 10 men. And then when we're feeling shite about Hibs, we cast that up. Like, you know, you can't have both ways. The Celtic and Rangers thing is, I think it's a stupid judgment, and we were speaking about the other day. Jack Ross got judged harsher than any Hibs manager. 3rd place is what matters, and cup performances are what matter.
Was Lee Johnson got a gun to your head, Euan?
No, but how you get there doesn't matter.
You should be really liking him.
I just think if Hibs finish fourth this season, regardless of what's happened in the 38 games, regardless of who finishes third, Hibs will have progressed from last season. That's my opinion. If we finish fourth place, this season will have been fine and better than last year.
I would suggest with the level of investment in the playing squad, we should have done more than just progress a smidgen. I think we should have progressed a lot more than we have. I think we're a marginally better team than we were last season. And that's very
Marginally has
marginal.
also probably been quite kind as well.
We are better.
To use Jack Ross to be fine margins, you might want to say. Very fine margins.
I think I think if we win at the weekend and we have a performance in which we have we've done it at times under Lee Johnson where we've put really good performances in and kind of taken the sword to teams. It's not happened very often, but it has happened. And we batter Hearts, which hasn't happened in a very long time. I think that we have a completely different conversation next week. But if we lose that game, I just... But anyway, that's for another episode. But David MagD36 asked, for Aberdeen, Hibs and Hearts, how many defeats in a row should warrant being sacked?
Well, how many games in a row have you won before it? Like,
yeah, I think there is a bit of context that's missing from it. But in my opinion, one of the main gripes for me, and I said it before the game, and you mocked me because I probably didn't articulate it in the right way. I just didn't want the Rangers and Celtic game to have a knock-on effect on performances against other teams in the league, and it clearly has. We've went from being unbeaten in about 6 to getting absolutely walloped by the Old Firm, and now we've been beaten 4 in a row. It's not good enough.
You made that point about performances. We got a performance against Celtic, and look what happened against Motherwell. Like I'm sorry, but I know you're trying to back up what you said with some validity, but we performed against Celtic and we were shy against Motherwell, so it didn't give us any momentum putting a performance against Celtic.
Because then we played crap against Rangers. That Rangers game is potentially the worst we've seen us all season.
The Celtic game was after the Rangers game.
Was it?
Aye.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So you say Rangers game's the worst you've seen us, but then we've played worse twice. 2 games since then. So what is every week just going to be the worst? It's going to gradually get worse.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. But
just to answer that,
you also need to go back and look at the fixture list and see where the games actually were, Harold.
Just to try and answer the question with no context around it. Like, if you go through a fixture list in terms of 11 games, we may win, or even 1 or 2 wins, then that's, you know what I mean? Like, if you can play sort of 11 games with 1 win or whatever, which I don't think we were too far off, I think that's pretty unexpected. But like, if you go 5 games with a win, which Hibs are not too far off, but like, you draw one of them, you lose to Old Firm, like, it's tricky, but context is everything, mate. Context.
There are some results that aren't acceptable and should instant sacking, including a run of results that isn't good enough. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it should be at this club.
Yeah, it's a difficult answer around.
Yeah, I mean, without context, yeah, but there is genuinely some results that would be entirely unacceptable. In some run of form that would be entirely unacceptable.
He is lucky that
he's incredibly lucky because
he didn't get sacked in January.
Obviously we spoke to Ben Kensley and he said that he was going to back him. Fair enough, but he's not done that previously. So what's so different about Lee Johnson?
I do think you try to learn from your lessons, though, don't you?
Don't hire shit managers. Then there's a lesson.
I'm assuming that'll be the next lesson they learn.
I hope he doesn't get another lesson because, quite frankly, his job's on the line as well.
Aye.
He's not been good enough. He's going to hide behind a director of football.
If we're talking about lucky Lee Johnson's lucky that they horribly managed 2 managers in a row. If Lee Johnson hadn't come in off the back of the disastrous appointment of Sean Maloney and the now looking back disastrous sacking of Jack Ross, he would not be at the club. He's at the club because the club made mistakes before. He's not at the club because he's got any credit in the bank, because he's not got any credit in the bank. Hibs haven't been anywhere near good enough under Lee Johnson, and if we'd managed managers better before him, he wouldn't still be at the club. That's the only logical reason I can see. And to be honest, I accept it to an extent, because I think clubs to run functionally. Like, I don't think Hibs are going to put themselves in a position. I don't think we've got strong enough leadership to put ourselves in a position to compete with the Old Firm one day. But someone at some point needs to put a project together in which they believe in a manager, back a manager, kind of build a whole scheme in which they can develop young players, bring in some of the best talent in the country. Lee Johnson's not the man to do that. I know that's not our objective. Our objective is to kind of try and get third and become the team that's the third best team in the country. Again, I don't think Lee Johnson's the man to do that. I don't think we've got a personality. I don't think we've got a plan in place by the looks of things. We're a different team every week. But yeah, let's move on from Lee Johnson.
Let's be honest, like, football fans just care about what the vibe is.
Yeah.
See, if you're winning every couple of weeks and you're playing all right football, then that, because if we're being brutally honest, where Hibs are in the league right now is probably about par for all our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Sixth, scraping into the top six. And see, if you want to be really brutally honest as well, Hibs, Aberdeen, Hearts should be competing with each other. And you'd probably even say Dundee United, right? So if every single team in Scotland played to their maximum capability, Hibs would probably finish fifth. You know, if you were putting it on fucking fan base, money, history, everything, Hibs would be fifth. So right now we're basically trending one, and I think it's right that we should be aiming for third and fourth and stuff. But we're kidding ourselves on if this hasn't been par for our entire life. We've seen better and we've seen a hell of a lot worse. Just in the moment, it feels like the worst thing in the world.
I think you're correct to an extent, but I think that, as Liam touched on earlier, I think with what's been put in place and the investment and the everything else that goes around it, I think if you add in the context, as you said to the last question, I think that we should be in a position where we should be competing for third, and especially when you look at the absolute disaster of a season that both Aberdeen and Hearts have had. There's no reason.
We're probably still spending less than them.
Yeah, fair.
If you're one of the most backed managers, let us not continue to arse the point of it, but let's just move on because we're not going to agree and we're going to be here all night.
But yeah, we've got one final. We did have a question from John McIntosh saying, "Who do we bring in if we sack Johnson?" I think we save questions like that until after the weekend. I think if we lose at the weekend, as we say, he probably goes, and we can have that discussion then. There's no point kind of dancing around something that's not happened yet.
Only one.
Jettle fucking nuts in. I seen a Hearts fan who's running up for the Hearts job, and to be honest, I'm very, very disappointed that a certain someone didn't reply to that tweet after me tagging them in it.
With a full thread. But Bob Stewart, more of an observation, but Bob Stewart said we need to give some of our development team a chance. Our midfield yesterday was rank, not enough forward movement from them. So in terms of development players, is there anybody that you can conceivably see? I think if we finish bottom six, in my opinion, as I said last year, I'd just start trying to bleed them into the team. I don't see any value in giving older players time in the bottom six. It doesn't really add any value to us. So if that happens, definitely. But for the rest of the season, if things do go positively weekend and we do finish top six, is there any players that you would potentially try and bleed into the team before the end of the season? To the room.
Depends who's staying, to be honest. If Laidlaw's not getting a new contract, then there's no point.
Oh, aye. Like my answer right now is no. If we're in top six, then play your best team. And I don't think, like I said earlier, Don Ken and them make it right now. If the manager just picked his best team, would be all right.
His best team might not even be good enough, though. That's the issue.
But then if the best team's not good enough, it's his fault. Just to...
because he also signs them. So yeah, it's his fault.
I think
we've been through the recruitment thing a million times.
Clarify,
he says yes to players. He is at fault for signing shite players. That's on him. It's not just on him, but he is part of that process and he is responsible for that. But you'll never find him taking accountability or responsibility for himself. It's always everyone else's fault. He's an absolute shite bag. He's a serial loser who's never actually done anything in the game other than be mid-table shite most of his career. Loser. He's not good enough for this football club, and that's a fact. You've seen that at the start of the season when he was moaning about the cup format because he always wants an excuse. Never his fault. It's an absolute joke.
Back to the question, Liam. Do you think any of the development players should be given a chance before the end of the season?
I do. I do. I think which ones depends on position. I think the obvious one for me is McIntyre because we're playing Stevenson and Chabrai at left back. If we're being honest, the manager doesn't really fancy either of them, and he's got a ready-made left back there. Maybe by playing one of the two centre forwards we've just talked about, that would incentivise them to sign a new deal. I don't know. Might also bump up the development fee that we get for them if they've got some more first team appearances under their belt if they're away. But at the moment, you'd have to say the top end of the pitch is probably one of the strongest areas in the field for us, Kukrevich, Nisbet and Euan. So they're a bit further down the pecking order. I dare say if they were right backs, left backs or centre backs, they probably would have played a fair bit of football already.
And in my opinion, if they were centre mids, I think the first half, especially at the weekend, I think that one
or a right winger.
One of the glaring holes I think that needs to be addressed in the summer, and it needs a complete overhaul. To be honest, I think our midfield is really, really poor. And individually, I don't like the players have shown that they've all got something. I think at times Joe Newell's shown that he's a top player. I think it's fair to say for most Hibs fans, we don't see it on a consistent enough basis. I think Josh Campbell's obviously been amongst the goals this season. I think he's a really good season, but again, there's consistency issues there. And then Jeggo, we don't need to get into. Jake Doyle-Hayes, again, we've seen that there's a good player in there, but not shown it
Not even
on a consistent enough. Yeah. So yeah, for me, I think that even though I still want my centre backs, as we all know, because apparently Mikey Devlin, is it Mikey Devlin we've got?
Aye.
Apparently, like let's discuss that. What happened? Why have we signed? Like, why is he there? The same thing happened with Fish. We needed to change things at centre back because it wasn't working at the start of the season. We had Fish there the whole time. We randomly dumped him on at right back at Tynecastle. He got embarrassed and it was a shame for the lad. And then we've brought in a veteran centre back who's proven he can do it in Scottish football. He's had a decent enough career. We've got him on a 6-month contract, which is like I thought was going to be a prove it contract and he'd get decent minutes. But we need like leaders in the team. We've been banging that door all season. And Mikey Devlin's right. He's sitting on the bench watching two centre-backs make absolute howlers for goals. CJ Egan-Riley, as far as I'm concerned, I know he started as a centre-back at City, moved to Burnley, and they've not touched him at centre-back. Made a howler for the first goal. And then the second goal, Fish just lost it.
Lee Johnson said, I think it was pre-game, might have been on Saturday, done last week, that we're getting him up to fitness and all that. He was a free agent that we signed on a 6-month deal that had nothing better. He came on trial for about a month. I don't understand the giving of the contract if he at that point wasn't fit. What was the rush? And how's he proving his fitness without stepping on the park? Like if he's that unfit, then serious questions need to be asked. I wouldn't even say the recruitment, just the sports science at the team at the club, which I think probably goes sports science and the physios probably need questions asked them anyway because our injury record's absolutely horrendous. But it makes zero sense to bring him in to talk about how we need to get him up to fitness, have him on the bench every week, and for him not to get a minute. It baffles me. Genuinely, I don't understand. It's not like he's been our player for a lot, like a McGuinness or something. We signed him on a short-term deal since we signed him, he's just doing exactly what he was doing before that anyway. You know what I mean?
He's getting paid for it.
He was signed as cover, and the time to cover was the weekend there when we had the injury. So if you sign someone to cover and they don't actually cover for injuries, what they're there, they're just an extra body in training for a squad that he told us was too bloated that he needed to shrink down. It's just another in a long line of Lee Johnson contradictions. It's like the contradiction about when he said we needed to create space for the young laddies to be on the bench, and that's a big part of why we clear players out in the summer. Where were the young laddies on the bench at the weekend? Where were the young laddies on the bench at Motherwell? It's just another thing. Like he just says so many things that eventually he ends up tripping himself up, and then re-tripping himself up, and re-tripping himself up.
With the young players, it worked well for him because we had so many injuries. He didn't have a choice but to put them on there, so he could see, you know what I mean. And then, like you say, like the moment that he's maybe had decisions to make, he has got them wrong. Like I know I've sort of defend. I'm just presenting the case for maybe not moving off him right now. But Liam's right. Like he talks the most shite, and that's coming to us. Like you could probably go through all his interviews this year, and you think they were for different people. You know what I mean?
The,
Like,
the worst one was probably asking Celtic players what they're for their breakfast. Like, of all the things he's said this season, that's up there with the worst.
When he compared them to cars, one of them was a Ferrari and one was a
Like, it's fucking,
that
he
Ferrari
talks about
Ferrari and a
he
Fiat,
talks
was it?
talks about box entries and like just talk normally. Like, actually just pack it in.
a guy
He
does a
doesn't
box
get any, like, he actually doesn't get anything else for talking like that. So why not just talk normal?
Do you know something that I think he has got a lot of unnecessary stick for after the weekend? I think people are saying he blamed the fans for something. He didn't. Really, he said a lot of shit, but he never said that. He just says,
Fucking hell. Ian, is there posters of Lee Johnson on your wall? Is that why you pointed out your background so we can't see them?
I'm just saying, like,
Fucking
there's
hell.
loads to be angry about. Just making shit up, though, is leave that to the manager. Like,
Yeah. No, he says enough, talks enough shite with it. People try to add things in there.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap up the podcast. And has anybody got any gripes?
that was a nice dead end.
No, I was going to say, has anybody got any gripes from yesterday that we've not had the chance to quite touch on that they think's relevant? Again, I don't really like to throw any individuals under the bus, but any like sweeping statements about particular problems from yesterday that we've not touched on.
Kevin, that's would be a good striker if he stayed in his feet longer than 5 minutes.
I just thought yesterday, especially in the first half, I think even early doors well said it was the exact same as October. Just this time in the second half, we starting to play so like it just. If Nisbet scores early, you're flying really. Like I don't think Dundee United would recover for that in their position, and then Euan's chance at 1-1, like they're both chances, especially Nisbet's, that you would back the pair of them to take 99 times out of 100, and I know Dundee United did have chances, but at that point at the 8 points in the game, then I think you're coming away with 3 points if either of them go in my opinion. But
not being bottom of the league this season is totally unacceptable as well, and another reason he should lose his job. If you can't beat bottom of the table, you're going to achieve nothing.
Only team in the league.
Can I just have one other gripe that and the thing that really annoyed me, and it's I haven't listened to any press conferences for a long time now because I hate listening to them. But he focused in on the chance that Euan missed yesterday and the chance that Kevin has got yesterday. See, if you're going to play the bottom team in the league and you've created 2 decent chances, therein lies the fucking problem. So you can focus on those centre forwards, and Euan's getting a lot of heat, I've noticed on social media. He's back to being shite again after being a world beater a month ago. Schizophrenic. I do think there's something really, really wrong if you can only create 2 chances against Dundee United, and I'm not even sure we created a chance against Motherwell. Scored a goal, but did we actually create a chance? It was a half chance, really.
The most
a hike into the box
was the fact that you scored to make it 2-1, and
I don't think no response. So the team that goes inside needs to create chances, and it just needs to show a bit more fight, a bit more endeavour. And I know a bit more, a fucking hell of a lot more. And do you know what? Back to the question about earlier on chucking the young lads in. I know it feels reactionary because you're in a low moment, but some of those boys will just go out and they'll fucking try, and they'll run all day for the jersey. And I'm sorry, but back to the point about Stevenson and Shibraya, the manager doesn't fancy either of them. Yet he persists on playing one of the 2 of them. I don't think he even really fancies Cadden. I just don't think he thinks he's got another option. And play fucking Devlin, Do not persist with a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old at centre back.
I noticed
do not.
I think Hanlon's going to be fit for the weekend. I think that's why.
No.
No,
he was asked directly by Brian McLaughlin. He said he doesn't know.
Oh, right. Well,
I
do find my
need someone with experience, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? And they
Darren McGregor,
like rabbits in the headlights.
Genuinely.
Yesterday, but then he also throws them under the bus. Or sorry, he doesn't. He didn't throw them under the bus. But what he did say was that he thought that they defended very well. I failed to see where they defended very well in any element of that game yesterday. So he just makes things up all the time. To say that your two centre-halves defended very well when they actually didn't at all, because they probably didn't really have a lot to do, but what they did do, they didn't do well enough. But then after that, in a separate interview, he comes out and slates Will Fish again. So he just fucking makes it up by the hour, doesn't he? Absolutely clueless.
I do think
Says they were
that's
both fantastic, and then Will Fish is stupid. So it's one or the other. You can't have it both ways.
I do think that's maybe something we have brushed over, by the way. Like Lee Johnson got plenty wrong yesterday and against Motherwell, but like Liam said earlier, like not one of them, not one player has performed, you know, to the levels. And
Nobody's acceptable.
There should be a level of personal pride there as well. And like what Liam says about creating chances, well, we had more than enough players on that park yesterday that should be capable of creating chances, regardless of whether you're playing left wing instead of through the middle or right. We should have been more than capable of winning that game yesterday with the players that were on the park. Like, the manager deserves all the criticism he's getting, but the players should be taking just as much flack as far as I'm concerned. They've more than played their part in the inconsistencies this season.
A distinct lack of energy, of effort, of anything really yesterday. There was no substance to that performance. It was so flat. It was so basic. It was just... It was almost like they just wanted to get it over and done with.
Right. It's a pity there's not more of them out of contract at the end of the season, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of players under contract. Some of the loans are going back. Some of the loans, you could argue, are maybe some of the better players. So actually would make a case that when it comes to pre-season and getting the director of football in, they probably should have been in post for a while now, so they could start preparing for what I think is a massive job in the summer, not just in terms of recruitment, but in terms of getting some bodies out there, because there's some contracts that have still got a couple of years, maybe a year left, which quite frankly are bad contracts that we handed out either last season or the season before. Bad contracts. Players on far too much money and players far too comfortable, in my view. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yep. Well, on that very happy note, well, unfortunately, John didn't ask us about what we're having for dinner. But John, I'm going to steal your question when you didn't ask it. What we're having for dinner tonight, guys, and hopefully it's a bit more positive than what Hibs have been.
Yeah, it's such a good dinner.
What'd you go for?
It was steak, potatoes, broccoli, green beans. Like, it was really straightforward, but like it was all like
green beans. You know what I mean? Green beans. Is it the green beans? Will you pick up Harry for the way he says stuff and you just say green beans?
I think green beans.
Green beans. You say green beans. You pick up Harry.
Wait,
it's only fair.
Sorry.
Please tell me other people heard that.
Yeah, no. So, Greg, the reason
I can't even hear the difference.
Shush. Greg, the reason I wanted to cut in earlier is because when you went on a rant, it was a good rant, but at one point you went offensively, and I wanted to jump in and be like, if I'd said that, you guys would have fucking roasted me. So I just wanted to say
I hesitated when I said it. Like, I hesitated when I said it. I was like, I'll go for it. No, but like it was like the potatoes and steak were cut into like proper, bite-sized bits, melted cheese over the top of it, roasted veg. Very
what
good.
Cut of steak?
Just sirloin.
Fair enough. How was it cooked?
In the pan.
Fair enough. Jeeb, dinner, is it yourself or is it Elaine on the job tonight?
I made the dinner tonight. It was chicken and mushroom pesto pasta. It was very good.
I got really excited when you said chicken. I could broccoli and potatoes was following.
No. But broccoli is elite.
Nice. And Liam, yourself, anything funky? You tend to be the chef of us all.
Nah, I had made spag ball at the weekend, so there's still some left over. So we had leftover spag ball, which is always fucking class on a Monday night, to be honest. Spag ball's up there for me. Fucking love a bit of spag ball.
Nice. And to recover from the mishap of yesterday, I had a nice wee trip to Brighton. And just before I left, I got a cheeky wee fish and chips there because it felt correct to do down in Brighton. And it was actually very scrumptious. So I don't actually think I'm having dinner tonight because that's filled me up quite a bit.
It was what?
Scrumptious.
Absolutely delicious.
I can't. This is another thing I've got. I can't eat fish and chips anywhere that doesn't do salt and sauce. I cannot have it. It's not the same, man.
No acceptable.
Take salt and sauce out. It's just not the same food.
I live with salt and vinegar. Arsehole.
Being honest, I much prefer like a kebab from a takeaway, but that's a story for another day, guys. All right, well, thank you very much. As you can tell, we're not particularly pleased with Hibs. I'm hoping that this time next week we'll be recording and we'll all be eating our hats because we'll have absolutely pumped hearts silly and we'll be scheming about how we're finishing third. Don't expect it to happen, but you never know. We'll be back later in the week. I don't know who's going to be on, but at least a couple of us will be on to discuss the upcoming derby at the weekend. Thank you very much for joining, and we will catch you next time.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Bye.